Okay, we are live, but we got to let it breathe. Hang tight. Bring it on Facebook, and then we'll get things fired up. Lots to discuss tonight. Let me tell you, can't wait. We're good. So, welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me is not Zach Kelberman. Zach had something come up. We've got Mr. Producer himself, the co host of Broncos for Breakfast, and of course, the utility man here on all things MHH podcast, Scott Kennedy. Scott, dude, lots to get into, but first things first, what did you think of the NFC title game? Were you surprised to see the Eagles advance?
Not no. I mean, I said I felt pretty good about that one on, when we did our last predictions. I was like, the Eagles are they're just better in the trenches. And, for all those that want to say, well, they were down to this quarterback, down to this quarterback, down to this. How do you think that happened? We're talking about a defensive line that had 70 sacks. They beat the hell out of your quarterbacks. It's not like he got turf toe or pulled a hamstring or something. These guys are getting beat up. That's not unlucky. That's you're going against a team that's tougher than you where it matters. They're just better than you. So no, I am not. I'm not surprised. Obviously, if you'd been able to keep Purdy healthy, it probably would have been a closer game. But I like the Eagles in this one pretty handily.
We've got halfway through the game, basically. We've got the Chiefs up on the Bengals by a touchdown. Have you been watching this from the start? How do you see it shaking out?
I did watch the first half, and since I picked the Bengals for the first time and cursed them, then the Chiefs will probably come out and win. But my first thought on it was you better start scoring some touchdowns. I was like, it's 6-0, and it feels like the Chiefs are dominating this game, and then all of a sudden the Bengals are, right there ready to take the lead. But then, turnover here, a couple big plays there, and the Chiefs they look good now. But second half, it's still really anybody's game.
And it'll be interesting, though, if it does shake out to be the Eagles versus the Chiefs, the Andy Reid revenge Super Bowl. I don't know, some kind of storylines that'll get spun out of the fact that he was close but no cigar guy in Philly. What was it? 3 or 4 consecutive NFC title game appearances, 1 Super Bowl berth, lost to Tom Brady. Could be his chance for redemption.
Yeah, he's already got his ring. I think the good feelings that Andy Reid. I don't think there's really any hard feelings there with Philly. So it redemption or one thing, but it's probably all love. It's the city of brotherly love, right? Philly's always real forgiving and nice and all that type of thing, as long as they're winning.
Well, I know, Scott, that you've been rocking out to some really good music this weekend, and no, I'm not talking about Bridge the Gap, my creation. Scott went to a great concert last night. Have you had a chance to catch the latest rumors, though, amidst your weekend enjoyments? What we've heard, I'll just set the stage and then I'll serve it over because not everyone maybe has.
Yeah, a lot of rumors. Again, that's the thing is I was in here a minute ago, just kind of in the chat, and I was like, what I get annoyed about is when people take these rumors and report them as facts. When I see like the Broncos have announced, the Broncos have said, folks, the Broncos haven't said jack squat. They're keeping quiet, which is what's keeping everybody on. There's a phrase I like to use. People would rather hear no than nothing. The idle hands is the same thing with no news coming out of there. People are just kind of speculating. They're losing their minds. These guys are incompetent. They're not telling you anything. Right now, they're letting everybody else look like the ones that are panicking. And if it comes out, hey, maybe they really didn't know what they were doing, and they end up getting, fifth choice Ione as their coach, one thing. But I'm certainly not going to judge right now based on what I'm not seeing happen. I always say, follow what they do, not what they say. Well, we don't know what they're really doing. They're interviewing people. We don't know what they're saying because they're not talking. So I'm not going to jump to any big conclusions based on rampant speculation by people who are paid to create rampant speculation.
All right, let me get some things out there for people to understand the lay of the land. So we learned yesterday, Adam Schefter, that the Broncos, despite 2+ weeks ago, of course, Jim Harbaugh bowed out, said, I'm sticking with Michigan. Broncos CEO Greg Penner and GM George Payton reportedly flew to Michigan this past week to meet with Harbaugh. One last swing at the plate to see if they could close him. They left without a deal. Then we learned Sunday morning, a few different rumors, that the Broncos are it's kind of a almost like restarting things. So first things first, real quick, Scott, I want your thoughts on these candidates. Jeremy Fowler reported that he's heard the name of New York Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka linked to the Broncos. And then a little bit closer to home, KOA Radio's Benjamin Albright, who is usually quite reliable on these matters, also floated Kafka's name, but then mentioned also the defensive coordinator of the Eagles, who the Broncos interviewed last year, Jonathan Gannon, and Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, who the Broncos also interviewed last year for head coach. On those subjects, real quick, the only one of the first, those two guys that they did talk to last year ended up going with Nathaniel Hackett. The only feedback we got on those two interviews was relative to Gannon. And that was, Scott, that they were mighty impressed by Jonathan Gannon. But I guess the compulsion to go with a younger offensive-minded guy was too much, and he wasn't invited back for a second interview. But before getting into the veracity of the rumors, as a three perhaps newer candidates into the mix, what are your thoughts on these guys?
Well, we've been talking about the quietness, the radio silence that we've been hearing. And if you're still swinging big, well, Harbaugh and Payton are still technically out there. We're losing this guy. There's only been one hire so far. You're not losing anything. You weren't in on Frank Reich. Nobody's been lost yet, except for maybe Harbaugh. And that one's still in play, possibly. I like the idea of Kafka as well. How much of it is Dayball and how much of it is him? But I've said before, you've heard me say it a zillion times, Chad, the Hall of Fame the Hall of Fame quarterback with the offensive coordinator scares me. I just saw too much of it come out of Tom Brady, from Charlie Weiss to Josh McDaniels. Yeah. That scares me a little bit. Developing Jalen Hurts is a different story out of Philly. That interests me. Developing Daniel Jones interests me. That's different. If I can make hay with, someone that's doing what Kyle Shanahan has done, plugging and playing in different quarterbacks in, that interests me. It scares me a bit when, and I hear we've talked about Eric Bieniemy a lot. Eric Bieniemy is getting interviews for offensive head coaching position or offensive coordinator positions. Why? Because he needs to get out from Andy Reid's shadow, and without having Patrick Mahomes. If he really wants to be a head coach, he needs to be an offensive coordinator somewhere else, because right now he's got that perception that I just explained, which was the same perception, the reality that we have with Nathaniel Hackett. He was not even calling plays. He's got Aaron Rodgers. What exactly is he doing here? So I like the candidates and the fact that other than Gannon or Kafka, who would have already been available, the others are still in the process up until today, which is why we may not have heard as much.
Let's grab this super chat from the very patient and always supportive Jonathan Peterson. Good to see you, John. He says, this search is getting ridiculous. Why didn't Denver just cast a wider net to begin with, front-loading staff from playoff teams? It's fine if Harbaugh or Payton were main targets, but it feels incompetent. Now, Scott, I want to serve this over to you with one quick comment, and that is, that's kind of been, reading the room since, I'll say, about Wednesday, Thursday, a lot of the MHH podcasts, and just really a lot of the conversation going on around Broncos country media is that they botched it. They've screwed things up, and now they're having to reset. And, perhaps the cold-blooded capitalist experience and instinct of the Walton Penner Group hasn't served them as well as yours truly might have assumed that it would have. But fans kind of now having this outside perception, Scott, that the Broncos, one coach has been hired, one head coach vacancy has been filled. That was Frank Reich to Carolina. And that the Broncos not landing a Harbaugh, not landing a Payton, seeing Dan Quinn return back to the Cowboys, and now all these new rumors that it's basically dereliction of duty. So what do you think?
I think if you interviewed all those people, and you did, do we know if any offers were made to any of those? If not, why not? Did Dan Quinn turn down a head coaching offer, or was he not the right guy? Frank Reich was never the right guy. Everybody else is still out there. So again, talking about the wider net, what's reported and what is can be two very different things. Why would they're not going to come out and tell you, hey, we're really focused in on Shane Steichen right now. That's our top guy. We're focusing on Shane Steichen and D'Amico Ryans right now. And we're going to interview who comes out of this thing. And that's our number one target. You don't do that. That's not how you play this game. I've said a zillion times, this is a poker match. And what is another word for bluffing? Lying. There's more lying that goes on. But instead of bluffing and lying and doing all this, they're sitting back and letting everybody else run around. So we don't know for a fact that they are incompetent. What we do know for a fact is they're not saying much at all. And I'm not going to pass judgment preemptively, Chad, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm not going to preemptively judge this search as a clown show. Again, if they come out of this thing, the Alabama Crimson Tide back in the early 2000s struck out on like 4 different candidates and finally went with Dennis Francione. And he ended up, the nickname for him around the SEC ended up being Dennis Fifth Choice-Ione. So if they end up with a Dennis Fifth Choice-Ione as their head coach, then I will judge. Then I will come out and say, these were the mistakes we saw along the way. This was right. This was right. This was right. But if you come out of this with a really good quality head coach candidate, what's the problem?
I think that's fair. I know Broncos fans are sick of the waiting game. They're sick of sifting through the rumors without a resolution. They just want the news to break. And I totally understand that. In many ways, we share that perspective with you guys. But I agree with Scott. Don't jump to conclusions, panning and slamming the Walton Penner Group and George Payton or whatever, till you see what the fruits are. Let's see who they come out of this with. They haven't made a hire. No official reports of any specific offers made to any of these interviewees. Closest thing we can get to, Scott, is the fact that the Broncos traveled back to talk with Jim Harbaugh. And I would assume some kind of overtures were made, and I would assume he was still interested enough to accept the palaver in the first place, but we don't know anything yet. Real quick, the Duchess jumping in. Michaela Parker, an OG, a Mount Rushmore superstar here at MHH, and near and dear to our hearts. She's saying, and by the way, thank you, Michaela. She says, right now, when it comes to the Broncos, I have no clue. Shake my head. And we're feeling that, Michaela. Everyone's kind of feeling that. And Scott, I don't know about you, but and then we'll grab Drake. I think one of the reasons why Broncos fans are feeling a little like they're on uneven footing right now is, George Payton, he's a familiar face. There's now 2 years worth of experience kind of getting a feel for how he makes decisions and how he maneuvers. But this Walton Penner Group, these are new sheriffs in town, so to speak. And so it's not as easy to kind of anticipate where this might ultimately go, especially now 3 weeks plus into a head coaching search where it was postured that the deep pockets and the seemingly endless checkbook of the Walton Penners, all that Walmart money, was going to solve this problem early and often, get it out of the way, go get you a tier 1 candidate, and close the door on this as a talking point.
I warned y'all against that early. And the main reason why is it's nice that money is no object, but if money is the deciding factor, you don't want the person that's deciding based on money. That's not the reason you want it. It's too hard a job. If your heart's not in it, if you're not 100%, I'm living, breathing. You hear coaches, former coaches, anybody that's been around coaches talk all the time, especially if you watch any of the Jeff Saturday stuff from the Colts and how pissed off people were that Jeff Saturday got that interim job. They talk about this as a lifestyle. It's a life choice. You don't see your kids for 2 weeks. Man, if your heart's not in it, if you're just taking a check, it's doomed to fail. Drake says, and this is kind of what I want to know, Chad, because I haven't seen anybody other than people repeating this as if it's fact. And I can't imagine the Broncos coming out and issuing a press release saying, you know what? We are no longer interested in Raheem Morris and Ejiro Evero. So Drake comes in and says, hey, fellas, what are your thoughts on the Broncos confirming that Raheem Morris and Ejiro Evero are off the radar for the head coaching spot? Now, they may have leaked that to Kliss or Albright or someone, or Chad Jensen, but the Broncos probably haven't confirmed anything at this point, have they?
Not that I've heard, but I've been nose deep in watching these games today. So I'm going to do a quick cursory review.
Drake says there's talk about it as if it's fact. Yes. I'm like, the Broncos haven't said anything. Like I said, it's the idle hands, doing the.
Here we go. Hold on. Here we go. According to Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, all right, Broncos have informed Ejiro Evero, David Shaw, Jim Caldwell and Raheem Morris, they're no longer in the running for head coach. That is according to, again, Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero, for what it's worth. So that's what we can, that's the very latest.
I
All
believe
right.
that they're talking to their coaches' agents. Okay.
There's nobody happier right now than Thomas Hall to hear that David Shaw is out of the running. But
Well,
as you were,
we get a lot of crossover, and I speak with this group a bunch, and David Shaw was my least favorite candidate of everybody that's been linked to this job. And he may have been great, but it just didn't seem right to me. I'm like, nobody else is after this guy. And Drake, Wally, thank you, my friend. Thanks for coming in on that. If I'm a Denver Broncos fan, I think of this as good news. There's some legitimate candidates in there. I think Raheem Morris would have been my pick out of that bunch. For reasons we've talked about before, he would have been my pick out of that bunch. I think Raheem Morris is a very good candidate. Giro Evero is probably a year away. Jim Caldwell could do a job for you for a couple of years and come in and stabilize his franchise on a level that he'd be Jerry Rossberg plus. That's a good thing. If they're out there telling guys, "Hey, thank you, we've narrowed our search and you're not in it," I'd take that as good news if I was a Broncos fan.
well, plus, I mean, Giro Evero still under contract with the Denver Broncos, and he might be in the running for some of these other openings. We'll see how that shakes out, but none of these names am I shedding tears. That's one thing. Well, let me ask you, for those who haven't heard your opinion on this, you like Raheem Morris? Why?
I do. Why? You may have just asked. I didn't hear you say. Why do I like Raheem Morris? Raheem Morris is a very similar coach to me to Lane Kiffin. Okay, you may not like Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. He was arrogant. He was cocky. He was overwhelmed. He got the job too early. All of those same things apply to Raheem Morris. He got the job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 32 or 33 years old. He wasn't ready. He got that experience. He failed out after 3 years, was humbled by how the treatment that he went and coached offense. He's coached both sides of the ball. That's a plus in my opinion. Worked his way up through defensive coordinator through the Atlanta Falcons to the LA Rams and wins a Super Bowl. Now he's a grown man. We're talking 45 years old, 43, 44 years old, having been humbled as a 33-year-old brash, arrogant, loudmouth kid. And now he's a grown man at 45, and he's been humbled and experienced success along the way and gotten some really good experience. Raheem Morris, to me, is an excellent, excellent candidate. I have all the same things to say. I used to hate them both. I hated Lane Kiffin. I couldn't stand Raheem Morris because I thought they were in over their heads and just way too arrogant. They've both been humbled. Lane Kiffin, to me, now is hilarious, and he's a really good football coach. Raheem Morris has had all kinds of success through his path of returning back to becoming a head coach candidate. That's not easy. That is not easy after it comes to you that quickly to work your way back up to it. So I really like Raheem Morris.
Chris Hernandez, bro, love you, big dog. My brother in both the Denver Broncos and Punk Rock, jumping in with a super sticker. Because it's just the two of us, we can't pull up to see what the sticker is exactly, bro. But thank you very much for the support. You know we love you. You know we appreciate you. It means a lot. And by the way, our Facebook stars that are rolling in, we're going to be getting to you here shortly. J-Boy's jumping in. This is a newer name, Scott, on Super Chat. He says, and by the way, welcome, J-Boys. Connect with us on Twitter. Stick around. All right, we like to shout out and keep in touch with and keep the conversation going with everybody on Twitter. He says, if they get a bad coach this season, we will suck again. Sorry, I'm a bad Rob Schneider impressionist. They mind
wake him up.
We sell the team again
tomorrow. Sorry.
It's all good. Let's see, get better owners. Broncos country deserves better. So J-Boys is kind of feeling that same sort of vibe. The only implication by the lack of an announcement or the lack of a Harbaugh or Payton being hired is that the Broncos have failed miserably.
Yeah, might as well sell the team again and get some new owners in.
Right.
That's a little harsh. Right off the bat. This is ownership is a decades long type of relationship. No one is going to care for this, you're hoping franchise that you're going to come in contact with that is connected to the Denver Broncos as much as the ownership.
True.
Players and coaches have a job. Some of them grow to love the organization, but it's still a job. It's a business. You hear it all the time. This is the owner's business, just like you are connected to this fan. There's a player I don't like, I'll outlast him. He'll be gone. If it's 5 years, if it's 6 years, he'll be gone. I'll still be here much longer than you will be. A coach, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. Even the longest ones, you're going to outlast as a fan. The ownership, this one goes a long time. So again, I'm not going to knee-jerk reaction based on what we're not hearing. It's the not hearing thing that is causing all of the speculation. And people tend to glam onto the speculation that scares them the worst.
Yeah.
That is scaring them the worst right now. Howie frickin' Day coming in with big stars. Howie, appreciate you. So what's up, fellas? New coach able to be interviewed now. Yeah. So maybe a couple more, depending on how the game is. I haven't watched it since halftime, but you could be going after the staff of
eyeball game now, 13 for what it's worth.
It's tie now. Okay. I'm telling you, the Bengals are like vampire. You need holy water and a wooden stake to put those guys out.
That's true.
But yeah, you could go after someone in San Francisco now, face to face, all that thing. The big boys of NFL media sure make it sound like D'Amico's headed to the Texans, though.
Yeah, that's right. Howie, love you, big dog. Seriously, thank you for the stars, my friend. Always great to see you in the chat. I don't know. I had a feeling. My initial gut was we were going to have some kind of an answer to these questions by the middle of this past week. Well, we've blown right by that faux deadline, and now it's like, well, don't know. It could be as early as Monday, Tuesday. It could be far on. I mean, the longer this stretches, Scott, the more we end up kind of getting into, relative to the Broncos anyway, uncharted water in terms of how far we're stretching into January without a hire. Phil, brother, appreciate you throwing down from Tucson, representing. Maybe some news this week. That's what he's trying to get to the bottom of too here, Scott, is when the Broncos are going to make this decision. Guys, I wouldn't focus so much on the when, all right? When it happens, it's going to happen. Right now, the key is you're saying your prayers that they make a good decision. You want to say the right decision, but in this case, there are probably a few right decisions. There are probably a few guys that would be really good in this role for the Denver Broncos, inheriting a team that has a 9-time Pro Bowl quarterback going into his 12th season, a good defense, a young, bright defensive coordinator still under contract and on staff. I mean, despite some of the murmurings you've heard in the media as the Broncos have dragged their feet on this and lingered into January, they're inferring that, it's because now suddenly the Broncos are just an unattractive landing spot for these head coaches. And while I'm not going to totally dismiss that, I mean, these 7 years post Super Bowl 50, there have been some depths. There have been some depredations, right? It's been a doldrums. I don't really buy into that. I think the Denver Broncos, as viewed by most of these coaches that are in consideration for the gig, Scott, I think they see the Denver Broncos as just as viable a landing spot as nearly anywhere else, especially when you look across the league at the different openings that have come up in the NFL. So my point, Phil, is maybe this week. We'll see. But really, it's just a matter of let's hope they get the right guy, because even Brian Callahan, this is a very intriguing young coach. He's got the NFL pedigree, old man, former head coach himself. I mean, this is a guy that if the Broncos were to swing that direction, I'm not shedding any tears. I could get excited about that. We're going back to a first-time head coach, but so would you be doing if you end up going after DeMeco Ryans? Like if DeMeco Ryans sees the Houston Texans and the Broncos, Scott, as being all things equal, so to speak, and the Broncos throwing that extra cheddar, that could end up being your head coach, a DeMeco Ryans who just got 86 bounced from the playoffs today.
I just think with DeMeco, there seems to be just a lot of pull locally for him. They talk about go where it feels like home. I think Houston feels like home to him is going to be the hard thing to beat there. And again, it's not going to come down to money, so to speak, because they're all rich. It's like if they offer him $10 million and that's where he wants to go, he'll take it. That's what he want to go. And if you have to offer him 20 to get him to change his mind, you don't want him then. His heart's in Houston. That's what I'm saying. It's nice when you're not a poverty franchise and you know that it's no object to that I can meet any offer that's out there. We're not going to get beat on money. That's a good thing. But there's more to it than that. Michael says, yeah, D'Amico is a favorite for the Houston Texans job. That's kind of the feeling that we get too. Mr. Noble says, hey, Scott, I think the scoreboard's bigger. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. I actually took this picture.
I think behind you is what he's
Yeah,
saying.
I actually took that picture when sitting next to Chad and our friend Dale, again, in the San Francisco 49ers game. But for me, my first thought, Chad, is the longer this drags out, the thing is, there's nobody else getting hired. That's what is. It's not like you're the one standing around. The music's off, and there's
which is
one
why,
chair
Scott,
left.
it's almost like that's a good point. I just want to hit on that real quick, not to cut you off, but no one else has been hired with the exception of Frank Reich. It's almost as if the entire NFL is waiting for a linchpin, right? Waiting for something to fall. What could that be? Is it D'Amico Ryans? Is it Sean Payton? What do you think that linchpin, if you were to guess, could be?
I don't know. I really don't. For me, it's the longer it goes on, the more likely the coach you end up with was one of these. It was a member of these last 4 teams, and that's why it's taking longer. And if it takes another week, it's one of the it's a guy from the Super Bowl. That's my gut feeling on how this works. But like I said, it's not like anybody else is getting hired either. It's not like there's one open spot. It's like, well, how come we haven't hired a coach? Because he's still coaching. 4 coaches aren't going to come out of these last 4 teams, I don't think. D'Amico Ryans might. There might be. They might. Is the other part of this. Well, and then until Jim Irsay gets his way and they hire Jeff Saturday full time.
Let's recount that real quick. We've got Colts, Texans. Who else is
Cardinals?
Yeah. Cards,
Broncos,
and Broncos. So there's 4 left. And yeah, so that is a
none of those
possibility.
are like, okay, right now people talk about, the Denver Broncos job looks great. Houston, you mentioned Houston, and anybody's going to say is, well, good luck for a year before they fire you. The Cardinals are okay. They're not a marquee franchise. Jim Irsay, the Colts are a marquee franchise, but you've got problems with ownership right there. And Carolina Panthers, they went and got a retread type guy. And then the Denver Broncos are definitely a marquee franchise with stable ownership, with deep pockets and a great fan base. Again, Russell Wilson's contract, it's 1 year, then you start a rebuild. That's short-term thinking. If I want 1 year, if all I care about is Russell Wilson's contract, go hire Jim Caldwell and be done with it.
Yeah. Andrew Lampy jumping in. Good to see you, brother, on Facebook. He says, what's good, everyone? Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Yeah, I did. I know Scott did, rocking out to some good tunes, some Alter Bridge in person. Dope. It's been a fun weekend. And of course,
that was a good time. That was Alter Bridge is pretty. Whatever you think about different music, you can appreciate musicians. And those are 2 of the finest musicians of any genre. The 2 leads for Alter Bridge are pretty amazing.
Plus, you got to see Eddie Van Halen's boy in Mammoth. What do you think of him in the flesh?
I didn't know anything about him, to be honest with you. And Eddie Van Halen changed my life. Literally changed my life. Eddie Van Halen is a reason why I was a metalhead. Up until that point, I thought Prince's Let's Go Crazy guitar solo was the coolest thing I'd ever heard in my whole life.
Yeah.
Then one of the kids who was in 9th grade while I was in 5th grade says, I got something better. You got to hear this. And I heard Eruption. I was done.
Yeah.
11 years old. I was done. Changed my life. So it was very cool. Very cool.
RIP to Eddie Van Halen. Mark Ward jumping in with the super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Says, like seeing Scott on with the priest. Let's get this hire right and get back to greatness. It's always fun. I always look forward to the odd times where Scott fills in and we get to talk shop. Scott and I go back a ways, as a lot of you might know by now. Look, dude, hey.
It's almost 10 years already, man.
I know, dude. It's been, time flies. I tell you what, Jacob Foster, the silent one, as you guys coined his nickname. Appreciate it. It's great to see you. Hope you're doing well, big dog. Sebastian Walker jumping in with a very, very generous super chat. Appreciate you, bro. He says, hey, guys, we need to get the coaching job right because we haven't had a good head coach since Gary Kubiak. Go Broncos. I feel you, big dog. Seriously. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know that there's really anything, Scott, to read into this, but as the Broncos kind of slow roll this hiring process, and guys, if there's anything to be interpreted here, it's that the agonizing wait everyone is suffering. It's because the Broncos want to get this right. Okay, they're not panicking. They're not jumping to conclusions. They're trying to do the right thing here. But you've got their two most recent head coaching hires. Didn't take them long to find employment, and both of them end up, of course, in the AFC East with Nathaniel Hackett joining the Jets as OC and Vic Fangio becoming the highest paid defensive coordinator period, highest paid coordinator in NFL history, probably, certainly right now. So if it's right now, if he's the highest paid coordinator in the NFL right now, probably means highest paid coordinator ever.
And that's a good spot for him. Right there. They're a solid team. Mike McDaniel, again, first-time head coach, relatively inexperienced. Having Fangio come in and let Fangio do his thing without having to. Mike McDaniel enjoys playing with the media. It's really funny when he's winning games and then he gets cut to shreds when he's not. But he's just quirky. He has fun with it. That's a good spot for him. And we knew he could get a job when he wanted one. He was just waiting for the right one while he collected his Broncos money. George Fox coming in with some stars. Said the owners are like a church mouse, but I think I like it that way. Just hope we make a choice soon so we get things going in the right directions. Denver Broncos for life, MHH for life. And Chad, real quick, talking about how quiet it's been with Denver, we keep an eye on the rest of the NFL. Who, in this coaching search of the 5 teams we mentioned, if we want to throw in Carolina too, who is the most outgoing, media hungry of them all, of the owners?
Oh, well,
it's
Tepper.
Jim Irsay. I'll save you from that.
Yeah, but he's also a weirdo. This is a guy that's like, maybe a pill. Rumors about pill addicts, being a pill addict, smokes cigs on the golf cart while he holds court with the media in today's. Now, if that was 1965, no one would be batting an eye, but a little bit weird. And then, of course, as you alluded to earlier, I mean, the whole Jeff Saturday thing that drove our Colts brethren absolutely crazy over at Horseshoe Huddle. But he's a little bit of a loon. So, and media hungry. Yeah, you're probably right.
And he's been quiet. He hasn't said a word. I mean, we talk about how quiet it is. And again, it's the vacuum that's causing all of the speculation and all of the rumors swirling and all. Again, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to suggest, here's what I'm going to do. Take it for what it's worth. I'm going to wait and see how this shakes out before I pass judgment.
Exactly. That's all we can do right now, guys. And again, as you agonize over it, try not to lose sleep over it. And if you can take comfort in this, I do. It's that they're taking their time because they're really trying to get this hire right. They want to get off the carousel. They want to get off the head coach carousel. David Kilgore in the house. What's up, big dog? Great to see you. He says, hey, Chad and Scott, glad to see you guys. My question is, why do you guys think we're not hiring Sean Payton? Is it the draft picks we'd have to give up, or is it something else? Scott, I have a few theories, but what do you think?
There's a phrase for stating something that's not a fact as a fact and then asking a question around it. Yeah. I forgot. You're better with that stuff than me.
Well, I mean, it's like I know what you mean, and it's going to
there's a phrase for a literary phrase or a term for saying, okay, the Patrick Mahomes is a terrible quarterback. Why do you think he keeps losing these games?
Yeah,
something like that is well, he's not a terrible quarterback. So, David, my point on this. How do you know you're not going to hire Sean Payton? Maybe you are. It's not done yet, my friend.
True.
That's the point here that I'm trying to make on this is you don't know. Now, if I had to guess, why do you guys think we're not? Say you're not hiring Payton. 2 weeks ago, when we're going through this and it looked like Payton was getting pretty close, Nick asked me, or if I was guesting with someone else that night, says, if Sean Payton is hired, is George Payton here next year? I said, no, he's not. Because it would be, Sean Payton's not coming unless he's heavily involved in personnel. And it would just be too awkward coming in. I'm taking your job, taking over your responsibilities, but you're still here. That doesn't work.
And we have the same name, at least how it's said.
And we've got the same name. It's too confusing. You got to go. Now, if he comes in and finds out, listen, George Payton's still going to be doing this, George Payton's still going to be doing this, you're going to reporting to me, and you're going to reporting to me, and I'm going to have final say on all of it, and I'm Greg Penner, Sean Payton may say, that's not not the diagram. What am I looking for? That's not what I'm looking for in an organization. I'm looking to I want to be have more control over personnel. I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think it's over draft picks. That said, as I've said a zillion times, if I'm downplaying Sean Payton, but I really want him, one of the reasons I want to do that is because I still got to negotiate my final deal with the Saints. And the Saints have to think I can walk away from the table at any time.
It's important to keep in mind, too, on this front, David, that, we heard about 3 days, Scott, into the 3 days after Black Monday, we heard reports that the longer that he lasts, the more likely he's going back to Fox Sports. Okay. Well, that being the case, here we are knocking on the door of February, and Sean Payton has not issued any sort of statement that I'm staying with Fox Sports. Why? Because he wants to coach, and he's got a line in a couple places probably. He's got a bead going here. So that's not me saying that means Sean Payton is the guy the Broncos are going to ultimately hire. What I'm saying is he hasn't ruled himself out. If he felt like what was that report? I'm trying to remember. There's been so many now. I think it was Rappaport. The verbiage he used was, it appears as if there is no place in the NFL right now for Sean Payton. If that were actually true, Scott, and Sean Payton knew that to be true, he would have, for the sake of pride, found a way to posture it his own way and saying, look, none of these places are right for me. I'm sticking with Fox Sports a long time ago, if that were true. He's being led on one way or another by one or two of these clubs, and I would be stunned, Scott, if the Broncos were not one of them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Cardinals are right there too. Those are some of the teams. Carolina is out. That's the only one that we're sure about that was interested in Payton. They removed themselves early, and it's probably because Payton wants to have some control, and more importantly, it was going to be more expensive within the division for the Panthers to make a trade to the New Orleans Saints. I firmly believe. Michael Ranquillo is coming in with monster stars, biggest stars as we've seen before, because it's 2-1, 2-3, 2,123 stars, because he is saying February 1st, 2023, the Broncos' new head coach will be announced. Michael's calling his shot. I like it.
That's awesome, dude. Appreciate you, Mike. You are a legend in our community, and you know this. We love you, big dog. We hope one day we get to hang out with you at one of the future MHH meet and greets. So we will look forward to that future date. Scott, you said something that makes me wonder here. We have, honestly, and I think you're probably the biggest impetus for this. MHH opinions.
What?
No. Impetus. Easy now.
Dynamic was the word I was looking for. That's not the dynamic I'm looking for.
Here, let me put it another way. Source of, all right, this take that has kind of taken over a lot of the MHH pods, including ours. We've started to downplay weeks ago what it would cost to get Sean Payton from the New Orleans Saints.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible the outside looking in view on this is wildly different than maybe how the Broncos view it? Could the Broncos really be kind of fearing the sticker shock because of, hey, look, we just came out of an offseason, Scott, where we gave up multiple ones, multiple twos, other picks and players, and here we are about to do that again. Like, we have to be pragmatic. As much as we would love Sean Payton, we can't completely hamstring our team relative to the draft. Could it be that perhaps that is more of an issue here for the Broncos anyway, a team specific the Broncos with what happened last year in terms of the capital given up to get Russ?
I think you know that before you make the phone call to Sean Payton. You make a quick phone call to say, hey, Sean, are you interested? All right, well, and he goes, yeah, let's talk. Say, okay, well, let me get on the horn with, I don't know the name of the general manager with the New Orleans Saints. Let me get on the horn with Zach Kelberman over there who's running the Saints. Let me see what they're thinking before we go too far down this road. Before we go too far down this road. Hey, what's it gonna take? Give me a ballpark here, And I hear something say, okay, we're in the neighborhood. Let's move forward, Sean. Let's see if we can come to an agreement on this, and then we'll talk. Then we'll go back to the Saints. So it's a lot how international soccer works. You have to come with three parties: the person you're trying to get, You come to personal terms with them, and then you've got to close the deal to buy out the contract from the team. That's how it works. If you don't think you have a chance, you don't go that too far down that road. We're not really sure how far they've gone, but if
That's
you're
a fair
not
point.
going out to LA and meeting with him in person unless you've got a decent idea what the Saints want.
It's kind of like one of my favorite movies of all time. It's not going to keep you on the edge of your seat. All right. It's not like that, but I love the dialogue is Glengarry Glen Ross. And one of the lines, and it's a kind of a salesman type movie or whatever. Those of you who've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But there's a line in there that Alec Baldwin drops, Scott, where he says he's trying to motivate his team of salesmen who are really struggling. He says, look, a man doesn't walk on the lot lest he wants to buy. And look, that applies here. All right. The Broncos aren't turning over the Sean Payton rock if they don't have a pretty good idea of what they're going to find underneath it first. Deanna, the Lady D, jumping in with a very, very generous super chat, as is her thing. We love her. We appreciate you so much, Deanna. Thank you. She says, it is painful to wait, but if they get the head coach right, then it's well worth it. Exactly. I'm still hoping it's Harbaugh. I'm no longer letting it upset me. I have to trust the owners to do right by the Broncos. It's in their best interest. MHH for life. That's very true. And Deanna, for what it's worth, that same report from Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero claimed that Harbaugh has said that if he were to, he hasn't completely privately behind closed doors reportedly ruled out a return to the league. But if he were to return to the league, it would be to the Broncos. Read into that how much you want, but it sounds like the door still got this much. It's open by like this much.
Let me see. What's the first Wednesday in February this year? February 1st. That's signing. That's National Signing Day. That's the big day for the Michigan Wolverines. Not so much anymore because they sign most of their classes in December these days. That used to be a big deal. So we'll see. That's National Signing Day. We'll see. I'm not sure how full Michigan's class is. It's probably still 90% full, like everybody does now. Deanna, thank you so much. And again, I don't trust the owners to do right. I'm just not going to judge that they are doing wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not going to preemptively judge that they're failing this thing. I don't trust them to get it right. That's not trust. That's faith. That's blind faith. And I don't got blind faith in owners. They screw it up all the time.
Yeah.
So, but I trust that they will do what they think is the right thing and they will put forth their best effort. But it doesn't mean they're going to get it right. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying right and wrong too much here. Dwayne is what's got it right here for us.
That's right.
It looks like Guru Lay to me for coming in green. But Dwayne, appreciate the support. Thank you as well. It feels like a newer name to me. So thank you so much. Welcome.
Newish. I recognize Dwayne in the chat, but newer when it comes to super chat. So thank you, bro. Yes. Much love. Michael jumping in. Roche, probably Roche, not Roche. Roche jumping in. Thanks, Mike. Says, hey guys, coming in a little late, but what is the best and worst case scenario in the hiring at this point? All right, I'm going to stay consistent here, Scott. And I'm going to say, for me, the best case scenario would still be the Broncos somehow finding a way to pry Jim Harbaugh off of Michigan's hands. That would, to me, be the best. Now, it's increasingly seeming less plausible, so I should probably offer a secondary alternative for the best. And it would still, for me, be Sean Payton. And I'm telling you guys, don't rule it out. They're putting things out there that now we want to talk to Gannon, we want to talk to Callahan, we want to talk to Kafka. That could also be a leverage play themselves to try and bring Sean Payton's ask or whatever he's after down. I'm just saying it as an example. To me, Scott, that would be the best. Worst case scenario at this point, knowing that Raheem Morris and that whole crew has been informed that they are not in the running. It's hard to say because what are we left with in terms of known names? You go.
Jerry Rossberg.
Okay.
That would be there's one of your fallbacks. That would be worst case. That would mean you struck out everywhere you went and you've got a guy to fill the job for the next 12 months until you do something else, get out and blow and hit the reset button next year. There's a lot of new faces in here that may not know me as well. I've said a zillion times, Russell Wilson's contract is, you can get out from under it without as much penalty after next season. Tim Patrick's contract is that way. Cortland Sutton's contract is that way. So whatever you think of George Payton, one of the things that I like that he has done is he's set you up where you can start over. You can, if this goes wrong, we can start over after next season. For me, the worst case scenario would be 2023 is we're flushing it down the damn drain because we missed on everybody we wanted to get long term. We're going Jerry Rosberg, and we're doing this again next year.
Yeah, I don't think it'll come to that. It's looking like, Scott, for what it's worth, Brian Callahan's about to get bounced from the playoffs. The Chiefs have the ball with just under 2 minutes. It's 2nd and 10, and they're nursing a touchdown lead. So it's looking like the Bengals aren't going to get lucky 2 years in a row winning an Arrowhead in the AFC title game. So, hey, who knows? Brian Callahan is an intriguing option. I'm very intrigued, as we talked about at the open of this show, by Mike Kafka. I'm surprised that his wasn't a name that was on the initial list of guys to talk to. You know, when you think back to last year, Scott, pre-Penner, Walton Penner group, you had George Payton and Joe Ellis and John Elway, et cetera, casting a relatively wide net initially, 10 interviews, and only one garnered a second. And even though there are reports that they planned to talk to 2 more guys after Hackett, they thought that Jacksonville was going to hire him, if I remember the story right. So they just went ahead and hired him. Well, look, now that was 10 people out of the gates a year ago. If they end up talking to 10 people this time and it just took a little bit longer, fine, as long as they find the right guy.
Folks are saying it's only the third quarter, dude.
Oh yeah, sorry. This is me. This is me being.
It's hard to keep one eye. I didn't even try.
Distracted.
When I got the call, bring in the lefty. Actually, I look like I got one arm here. I've got on some green. Didn't that look cool?
Oh yeah. Oh, see, modern technology.
That's my magic trick. I got on some green. Got on my Seahawks colors for some reason tonight. I didn't even turn it back on.
See, this is what happens though when you're juggling a chat, you're engaged in a conversation with your bro, and you're trying to keep an eye on a game in the conference. My bad, guys.
And Jacob coming in, keeping us on our toes. Big stars tonight, Jacob. Thank you very much. Everybody's talking about fumbles. Was it Melvin?
Ooh.
Was it Melvin coming in the fumble? Jim Pilcher comes in and he says, what is due next year for Payton? The speculation is that depending on the team, because it would be different, which is code for it's going to cost the Panthers more within the division, was what he said. And I believe this because the way he danced around the question, he's like, no, I don't know this for sure. And it could change. He put all those lawyerly type of things in there. He says, but I believe a late first rounder would get it done as far as at least getting the ball started. That would be the big piece. Would there be something in there? So it's going to cost you your 49ers pick, which would be 29 or 30 right now.
Mm-hmm.
29 or 30, and then maybe something throw in a 2024 fifth or something along those lines, and probably 8 figures of cash, which you don't typically care about, 10 to $20 million.
See, it was news to me. I think it was Albright like a week ago saying that the Saints, despite outside perception, cash, because these aren't things that are typically made public when it comes to, we know about the salary cap and things like that, but like the inner profitability and financial overall, situation with individual teams is not common knowledge unless there have been reason to specifically report on it. And when it comes to the Saints, they're not dying for cash like we knew they were years ago. Back when they got themselves into cap hell and they struggled to recruit in free agency and stuff, there were a lot of reporting that they were strapped when it came to cash. Albright's saying that they're quote unquote flush. And I apologize if it wasn't Albright, but I'm pretty sure it was Albright. Either way, just the perception, Scott, that they're flush. But hey, 8 figures in cash along with a first round pick and a third round pick, that's still a king's ransom. And it might not be.
That's not nothing.
That's not nothing. And it's not the same as what, the last trade of a head coach that took place was the John Gruden trade back in, what was that, 02 or 03? The Bucks got a lot more, or pardon me, the Raiders got a lot more out of the Bucks back then than that deal would be this time around. I mean, first and a third and a few $1 million or whatever, but still something about sounds like Sean Payton and his old homie Mickey Loomis, the GM there, that they have some kind of an understanding that I can maybe bend what I'm asking for if I'm Mickey Loomis, depending on who that team is. Like you talked about earlier, Scott. If it's Carolina, yeah, give me 2 firsts and 2 twos. We're in the
Yeah,
same
I
division or
want your
whatever.
9. I want
Yes,
your 9 and more if it's
right.
Carolina.
But if it's the Broncos, who are not only not in my division, they're not even in my conference, and Sean's telling me this is where I want to go, maybe I'll just not be as hard line on what I'm asking.
Yeah, it would make a difference. Now, again, that's speculation, but I was just kind of reading the body language and just using some common sense on this, knowing that you're not talking to Sean Payton unless you've already got an idea of what it would take. And the way Sean Payton answered the question, I felt pretty good about what he was saying was pretty legit. Not just the poker playing that you hear on there. Again, Colby C. Collier coming in with some stars. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in with some stars, my friend. Best case scenario for me would still be Sean Payton. He was my top pick for this team all along. Whether you think he's the right guy or not, I've said before I'm willing to have that discussion. For the hardliners that say a good coach isn't worth a first round pick, I think you're insane. I think that's crazy. Now you might not say Sean Payton's not the right guy, or we could have had this guy or this guy, but the problem is you don't necessarily know who you could have had. And if you could have Sean Payton for a first round pick, you do it.
Yep.
You absolutely do it, in my opinion. He's gonna make 53 guys better, whereas you've seen what bad coaching can do for your team, and all of those first round draft picks that have happened in the last 7 years have gotten you nowhere. And the right coaching staff can change that around in a hurry. I like to think about, do we all fairly well agree that Kyle Shanahan is a good head coach?
Jeez.
They
So good.
basically flushed 3 first round picks down the drain, and
That's true.
are sitting there in the NFC Championship game
Without a quarterback.
Well, maybe they didn't have a quarterback because they flushed three down the drain. That would be the argument for that. But I don't necessarily think so because they've gotten so many hurt.
Well, and we know they invested in the quarterback. They
Right.
spent a high round pick, top 5, or whatever it was, in Trey Lance.
Yeah. But they end up getting a guy in Brock Purdy who's performing really, really well because he's in a good system, getting in a good place where it's set up to perform because of the infrastructure around him. Then you might be a quarterback away and you bring in Tom Brady. I don't know. But the first round pick for me is not too much.
Guys, we're about to get out of here. So if you joined us a little bit late and you saw the title of tonight's live stream, the Denver Broncos this past week reportedly flew back to Michigan to try and rekindle things with Jim Harbaugh, but left without a deal. And then we learned this morning 3 new names being linked to the Denver Broncos. It's almost as if they're kind of resetting the search, and that is Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, and then New York Giants offensive coordinator and former Patrick Mahomes quarterbacks coach Mike Kafka. And then one last thing, 4 names eliminated reportedly from contention. 4 candidates the Broncos have informed, listen, we're not going to hire you. Ejiro Evero, Jim Caldwell, Raheem Morris, and David Shaw, for what it's worth. And Scott, with that,
I think that's good news, Chad.
Yeah,
I really do. You're not eliminating candidates if you're not close to anybody.
True.
If you're out there wandering around in the woods, you don't turn away help. So I think they're closer. They've narrowed it down for a reason.
And
it's logical. Now this whole thing could end up being illogical. Sometimes me being logical rubs people the wrong way because they are illogical. But this one feels like you're getting closer.
Plus, the board has shifted.
Holy cow, who's up late tonight? Good gracious.
Throw it down. Holy smokes. Ethan, a.k.a. the DWI guys, a legendary, mythical figure in the MHH lore at the 11th hour and the wee hours, by the way, of the morning in his neck of the woods.
2:15 a.m.
Holy smokes, dude. You are a maniac, and we love you. We love you because we're maniacs, too. Game recognizes game. Great show, he says, gents. Harbaugh is the hire. Let's do it. Is that your prediction, or is that your that's your wish?
I know he likes Harbaugh. Ethan likes Harbaugh. The style of play, the success he's had at different places, basically everywhere he's already been. He's coming off too wishy-washy to me right now a little bit. I'm coming here, I'm not. And again, he hasn't said a ton. the president came out and said he's coming back. I don't remember him saying that.
Well, he did in a very lukewarm, again, very non-committal thing about it's about family. It's about the, I don't know. He has an out. If he wants an out, he's got an out. And Scott, for what it's worth, aside from all the recent reporting, they didn't give him more money. They could have sweetened the deal and solidified the fact that he's going to stick in Michigan by throwing a few more Benjamins at him, which they haven't done, at least nothing that has surfaced publicly.
Yeah, you said, oh, he hasn't signed a new contract or he didn't get a new deal. He's going to. If he's going to be paid higher come August 1st than he's making right now. I promise you that.
Why August 1st relative to college? Is that some date for college?
Before the season. So before the start of next season, he'll be making more money. He'll sign a new contract. I don't know when. You know, typically if you say he's coming back, you've got a deal in place already, but takes some time. So I'm just saying by the time next season kicks off, he's making at least 9. He's around 7 now.
Ethan, bro, thank you so much. Guys, we're about out of time. There's one thing I'm going to tell you real quick. Actually, let's grab Mac Dog before I do this. Great to see you, bro. Thank you. Don't forget to go to bed on time. Make sure your homework is done. We want to see A+, Mac Dog. All right. We want to see A+ down there in, was it Lubbock? I'm trying to remember.
That's Lubbock, where Texas Tech is. They were down in Texas Tech territory.
He says, I still think it's Sean Payton. And this is partly what I'm saying. I'm not specifically saying I think it's Sean Payton. I agree that he could still be very well on the table. If he was going back to Fox Sports, if that decision had been made, I think he would have a long time ago, just to save some grace, so to speak. He would have saved some face, pardon me. Just said, yeah, guys, look, and if I'm Sean Payton, I'm doing it this way. I'm getting on Twitter and I'm saying, I appreciate all the interest from NFL clubs right now, but I love my job. I'm sticking here. And then when I'm on Fox Sports the next time and they ask me about it on camera, I'm going to say, yeah, nothing just quite felt right. I want to stay with, and I completely absolve myself of any kind of, negative stain on my clout and the way I'm perceived around the league, so that next year, hey, I can throw my hat into the ring once again and see what happens. So I think Sean Payton is still a part of this conversation. There is a domino. We can feel it, that these 4 remaining teams who have yet to hire that head coach, Scott, are waiting to fall. Wish I could tell you exactly what that domino was. It might be DeMeco Ryans, might be Sean Payton. We'll see. But once that next domino falls,
I'm starting to think of it as calling it that he's Dan Quinning it, which is kind of what Dan Quinn has done 2 years in a row. I've removed myself from this process. He did it fairly early.
Yeah. Guys, before we dip out of here, I would take it as a great kindness, okay? I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. As you guys know, I've got a band. We're rocking. We're rolling. We're doing some melodic punk rock. It's pretty cool. Go check it out. We dropped a single. Our first single, Bridge the Gap, is the name of the band. We dropped it on
I'm all
Friday.
About the Bridge. Stamford Bridge is where Chelsea plays. Alter Bridge is one of my favorite bands. Not nearly as much as Bridge the Gap, though.
Bridge the Gap, baby. The video is live. Go watch yours truly. Jump around with the guitar and sing and stuff. It's kind of fun. I put the link in the chat. I need you to watch it. I need you to comment, and I need you to like on YouTube on that video. Link is in the chat. Do me a solid. It's a small thing to help that record label out a little bit, and us. I mean, this is what I do. The whole band thing, it's for fun. We're having a good time. But help them out. Help us out. Go like that video. Give it a listen. And, of course, hit me up on social media. Let me know what you thought of it. But, Scott, dude, lots of fun. Love talking with you, bro. I think we pretty much covered everything. Should we get out of here?
Yeah, let's just a schedule update. Nick will be here tomorrow morning. I will not be here tomorrow morning. So I was glad I got to get in and vent to the priest here some of my thoughts about what's been happening over the weekend, including Fangio coming out some of the defensive coordinator spots started filling up. So appreciate you being here. I'm heading down to Mobile tomorrow morning, and I will be back on Broncos for Breakfast Tuesday morning, and then I will be on the evening shows Tuesday and Wednesday night from Mobile after Senior Bowl coverage, where we can do our shows.
By the way, love it. We're going to have that's 2 years in a row. Well, Scott's been going to the Senior Bowl for many years in a row, but for us, he's going to be down there 3 years in a row actually now. So look forward to his daily Senior Bowl coverage. He'll be doing updates both on his show and in the chats at night and doing his thing. So Stay tuned for that. And no, Phil, Bridge the Gap, we're not going on tour. We might play some shows here and there. We might do a few things if we can get invited to some festivals and stuff, which could very well and probably will happen. But no, we're not going on tour. But if we did,
I'm going. Here's the thing: is watching Chad would inspire me to get over my fear of like finding out that I actually can't sing. Because I like to think of myself as a decent vocalist.
Well, listen, Scott,
I'm too shy to go out and do it. But watching Chad do it inspires me, dude.
He goes, dude, I can do better than that. But listen, it's punk rock.
Well, no, we're very different. We're very different. I'm much lower. I'm like Seattle grunge sound.
Right.
I'm more Eddie Vedder. You're up a few octaves.
Ethan, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. And again, guys, if you go check out the Bridge the Gap music video, my band, be sure, even if you don't take the time to leave a comment, make sure you give that video a like. Helps out that algorithm, helps it get in front of other people. The same thing. And on that same kind of front, guys, quick reminders here. Follow the Mile High Huddle podcast Twitter account at the MHH Pod. Also, the mother account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. Go to huddleuppod.com, get some merch, get a hat, get a t-shirt, support the cause. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. All right. And then don't forget, this is so important. And I don't know, Scott, I haven't been forwarding this on, so you probably aren't aware of this yet, but I will be making everyone at MHH on staff aware of this. We have had a massive flood of 5-star reviews on our podcast page on Apple Podcasts, and we are so grateful. It's going to be fun to see who wins the January 5-star giveaway. But if you have yet to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, let not your heart be troubled. You still have a couple of days to get that in for January. Enter yourself into a chance to get a little thank you, a little piece of swag. Might be a jersey, might be an MHH hat, might be a little something. But we do that each and every month. So go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review for a chance at that. And otherwise, you know how to find us at Chad and Jensen on Twitter, at Scout Kennedy. Easy to remember on Twitter, at Scout Kennedy. And Scott, bro, have a safe trip to Mobile. Can't wait to see how things take shape down there and hear your reports and your buzz on all that stuff. And thanks for making time tonight.
Yeah, looking forward to it. The Ohio State right tackle comes in at 6'8". He had the longest wingspan in the history of the Senior Bowl. It was 7 foot 5.5 inches. First tidbit of the night. But I'm looking forward to getting down there and bringing the. Again, we talked on here so many players. I felt like, Jeremy, Ethan, all the guys we see in the morning know a lot of these players intimately by the time the draft comes around in the morning, joining us. And a lot of it was because of the Senior Bowl coverage that I love doing. So looking forward to going down there this week.
All right, guys, stay tuned for more coverage on the Senior Bowl and the Denver Broncos head coaching search. For Scott Kennedy, I'm Chad Jensen.